goodness, this expat alert is worse than anyone could have imagined because economists are now coming out and saying that no matter what, if this war were to stop tomorrow, or if the oil hit $150 per barrel, the globe is going into an economic crisis that will be worse than 2008. And we need to break it down today. For those of you who survived 2008 and came out on top, but also for expats, entrepreneurs, retirees, people who are wanting to leave the West behind, this could be your key pivotal moment before the world economy collapses. So let me tell you, at the center of this conversation is Larry Fink, whose perspective carries weight, not only because of personality, but because of his position in all of this. As the head of BlackRock, yes, that BlackRock, he has put out a warning. And just so you know, he sits close enough to capital flows to know what's going on in the global economy. His warning is not theatrical. This is binary. This is literally alert territory. Two outcomes, and there's no middle ground here. We either go down crisis point road A or crisis point road B. So, if tensions ease, the agreements are made, and supply expands, oil could fall sharply, which would still cause a worldwide global recession. But on the surface, this sounds like relief. Lower fuel costs, cheaper transport, a breath for consumers. But history has a way of revealing the layered circumstances behind economic crashes like this. The last time that oil collapsed aggressively, it destabilized producers, strained economies dependent on energy exports, and flirted with recessionary pressure. You and I both know this modern economy is not really fit to absorb these sudden shocks gracefully. The modern economy is built not on self-sufficiency or engineered reliance. It's actually built on luxury. It's built on continuous flow. It's built on convenience more than anything. And of course, on the other side of the question lies the more immediate concern, which is escalation that will push oil from where it's at $100 right now up towards $150 per barrel and beyond. See, if tensions persist or intensify, which is quite frankly most likely to happen in this Iran war against America scenario, and if geopolitical tensions increase, the oil supply does not just simply rise, it begins to behave less like a commodity and more like a chokehold. Everything that moves throughout the world, foods, goods, products, retail, even services in some standpoints won't be able to move anymore, even flights, because at the end of the day, aviation runs on fuel. Then, of course, if you're already in the West, which is an expensive territory of the earth, then this goes into housing, utilities, production. And this is how inflation returns with a fierce vengeance, not gradually, but decisively, seemingly out of nowhere. So you need to be prepared for the erosion of purchasing power while watching opportunities tighten just under your nose. And I know this is a lot to take in, but you really do have to pay attention to these things, stay prepared, figure out your geography, and if you are actually in a society that you would want to be in again once you see a total collapse similar to COVID-19. We have to get to the technical small detail that most people don't even see on the surface, your geography, because this is not just an economic story. It's a geographic one. It's a story about where you are physically going to be located in the rest of 2026 through to 2030. Where you are begins to matter more now than how much you actually earn. See, the Western world in particular has economies deeply tied to overconsumption and complex financial systems. Now, this is a recipe for disaster and world chaos. It feels like these shocks are going to be layered for Westerners. High living costs will amplify energy. Energy increases will affect those high living costs. And then you will see systems designed to scale struggle under certain pressure. In contrast, certain regions of the world operate on totally different terms, which is literally why my family and I left America in 2020 and did not look back. See, it was during C19, and so we didn't like what we were seeing. We knew that we did not want to be locked down in a Western economy. We wanted to be in one of the only economies that was open on earth between Tanzania and Madagascar, and we chose Tanzania. But you're at a pivotal moment because you can now choose to do the same thing and establish your legacy abroad, which really brings me to the Mature Adult Intensive. Visit www.journeywithusmovetoafrica.com/services because we are at about 90% capacity for cohort 7 of the Mature Adult Intensive. Now, this is like a 4-week boot camp that gets you relocation residency because it's not just about getting residency, but it's about international finance, having a power of attorney in place, setting up your business before you leave, having the coaching and consulting mindset that you need, figuring out your best flight pathways, figuring out the best neighborhoods and countries for you, figuring out the escape route that is going to yield the most peace for your family. For example, recently, a lot of one-to-one clients have been coming to us, and they are actually Americans who are married to people of other nationalities. They are Americans who are married to Ghanaians or Nigerians or Cameroonians. And so they're like, man, I want to get out of the West, but our situation is different. How are we going to be able to escape the West with this circumstance? And we always tell them that we're so honored to be on the call with them because we have a few ideas. After living in an international island like Mauritius, you meet a lot of people, Indians, Chinese, Ghanaians, Nigerians, Cameroonians, South Africans, everybodyans, like literally everybody that you could meet on planet Earth is right here on this little island. And some people choose occupation permits. Some people go the student visa route. Some people go the self-employed entrepreneur route. Some people go the digital nomad visa route. Some people do the retirement residency route. There's a route out there for everybody, but like the seasons, everything will close down after these lockdowns. So you better get in where you fit in. Visit the link in the description. Now, this is where our conversation right here switches from fear to positioning, to leadership, to legacy and stability. There are countries out there with a lower cost of living than America. Actually, even Europe, for the most part, has a lower cost of living than America. All of Asia, all of Africa, America tends to be that only place with the absurd inflation, the absurd cost of living, the absurd sickness rates, the absurd insurance rates, the absurd every rate, the absurd new build scams, the absurd education system that is now not even teaching children to read. But let me digress, because understand, your position next to an emerging trade corridor creates reduced dependency on Western influence and fragile supply chains. There is no more fragile supply chain than that of the USA. See, I happen to live in a very ancient part of the world, the Indian Ocean civilizations, the Swahili coast, which spanned Somalia to Tanzania to Kenya, down through Mozambique, the Mascarene Islands here, like Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mayotte, La Réunion, and across the ocean, trade was happening from Australia to India to China, all the way through back to these areas. Because while some regions brace for contraction, others are going to be quietly stabilizing. And you can get a piece of that stabilization if you so choose. Consider Mauritius. At first glance, it appears as a destination often framed through the lens of tourism. And tourism's great, you know, hotels, resorts, that's fantastic. Beaches, skylines, mountain hikes. Forest, kayaking, boating, like they have every type of nature activity you could ever want here. But beneath that surface is a structure that in moments like this becomes far more relevant. See, Mauritius consistently ranks in the continent of Africa #1 across a multitude of indicators, including governance, economic freedom, and the ease of doing business. According to the World Bank, actually, it has maintained strong regulatory frameworks and investor protections relative to its regional peers. Now, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation has also ranked it highly in governance and rule of law, reinforcing its reputation as a well-managed state, which really matters to you if you've been watching the headlines and the fact that even South Africa is kind of functioning like President Donald Trump in America. I mean, did you hear about how the South African troops are literally being deployed to Cape Town right now? And this is one of my favorite things about living on this island, because this island is not solely dependent on one country. They're super diversified, actually, hence our geographical location I was telling you about. If you were to just do a little bit of research on the ancient Indian Ocean civilizations that are inclusive of the Swahili coast in Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, China, India, Australia, then you would see that this is like the perfect area to be in for trade, and has always been that way throughout history. It is a key corridor for trade and movement of goods. And this diversification acts as a buffer when global shocks hit specific sectors. Geographically, again, we sit on the Indian Ocean, trade routes quietly connecting to the flow of goods between Africa, Asia, and the Middle East all at once. Now, can you picture yourself being somewhere like that as a retiree? Or as someone who's an entrepreneur? That creates a level of sophistication and global diversification that makes your portfolio and your experience look elite. Now let's talk a little bit about energy exposure, because we still have that present, but of course it is less inclined and dependent than patterns seen in larger Western countries like America, Canada, the United Kingdom, so on and so forth, even Germany, France, places like that. And the cost of living, though rising a little bit, is still structurally much lower than living in America or Canada or anywhere in Europe. But perhaps more important than the data is the pattern. Because in times of global distress, environments that combine stability, governance, and lower systemic complexity and anti-corruption tend to absorb shocks a little bit better. This is not about escape. This is about awareness for what is available to you in the future. You know what? I forgot to mention the State of the Diaspora, the 19th edition. It's actually one of the last days to sign up, because it happens this Sunday before the Mature Adult Intensive. Now, this one is at 70% capacity. Your ticket is $100, and we are going to go over the best countries in Africa, with Mauritius being one of those countries on the list. Kenya there as well, Madagascar, Botswana, Rwanda, so that you can understand how to maneuver in these times. You will be sitting with a group of about 5 to 7 other people that are thinking about relocating. It's so funny because inside of some of our client groups, we actually have people that didn't know each other before leaving the US that now decided, since, hey, they're single, why don't they just get apartments together and like really do life together while they're traveling outside of America into Southern Africa and the island nations. You never know. That could be a connection you make. You're never going to know what is ahead of you until you get into the room. So we'll see you in the 19th edition of the State of the Diaspora, link in the description. And listen, Mauritius isn't necessarily untouched, but it's less violently touched than other areas. And when that global stability starts to increase, the last people that are going to be happy in society are going to be people on some of these island nations across the world that seem like they kind of got to escape it all. And if you're one of those people that's like, there's no escape, friend, I'm here to tell you there 100% is, because I have lived it. Through 2020 to 2023, I lived in one of the only countries that was open during a pandemic and escaped the whole charade of vaccines, get this, mask this. They were not doing any of that in Tanzania during that time. So there's always an escape. It's just about your ability to witness, see it, perceive it, and believe it as factual evidence that you can use for your life. Over the years, I have realized geography is literally one of the most underrated strategic decision-making indicators that you can leverage. And in a world where energy can reshape things seemingly overnight, choosing where you stand may matter more than ever before. Shalom, shalom. I'll see you in the next video.